There's a face I still see sometimes when I close my eyes. It isn't screaming or crying. It isn't twisted in rage or fear. It's calm. Too calm. A pale man, thin and twitchy, who stood with me under flickering lights at some godforsaken truck stop in the middle of Arizona. He asked for a cigarette. I gave him one. We talked for a bit, small talk, and the whole time, I didn't know he had 3 bodies in the back of his truck. Real human bodies. I've driven through sandstorms, ice storms, riots, but nothing ever shook me like what I found that night inside that freezer. Nothing. And maybe it wouldn't have happened if I wasn't so damn curious. It was July of 2003. I was hauling fresh produce from Salinas, California, all the way to Lubbock, Texas. 1,200 miles of heat, dust, and bad truck stop coffee. That week, temperatures were pushing into the 110s. My rig's AC could barely keep up. Everything, my hands, the steering wheel, the air, felt like it was melting. The kind of heat that makes the world shimmer like a mirage. I'd been on the road 9 hours straight. My legs were stiff, my eyes gritty from the wind and dust. My plan was simple: pull over somewhere remote, fuel up, stretch out, maybe grab a drink, and crash for a few hours before pushing into Texas. Just past the Arizona border, maybe 30 miles east of Quartzsite, I found a place. If you blinked, you'd miss it. A half-dead truck stop clinging to life beside the interstate like a carcass in the sand. A single row of old pumps, cracked pavement, one flickering sign that said open 24 HRs, even though it looked like it hadn't been cleaned in years. I remember thinking how dead it felt. Even the desert winds seemed to avoid the place. No bugs, no birds, just silence and heat. I pulled into the far end near the dumpsters and parked beside a row of other rigs. But one stood out. A white box truck. No logo, no markings. Parked crooked, almost like whoever left it there was in a hurry, or didn't care. I stepped out of my cab and stretched, bones cracking after a long haul. That's when I saw him. He came from around the box truck like he'd been watching. Skinny, early 30s, dirty blonde hair, half-shaved. His clothes looked slept in. Torn jeans, a stained gray hoodie zipped up to the neck, despite the heat. He walked like his shoes were too tight. Awkward. On edge. "Got a smoke?" he asked. His voice was soft, but not in a natural way. Like he was mimicking human behavior. I handed him one, lit it, and we stood there. Silent. Just the sound of the hum. I noticed the sound. A deep, guttural hum. The kind of sound that drills into your ears and sits in your chest. It was the freezer unit on the box truck, running full blast. Vents pumping cold mist into the hot night air. And that didn't make sense. No markings. No refrigerated cargo label. No delivery tags. It was just a freezer. In the desert, running hard, I asked him what he was hauling. He paused, just a second too long, and said, "Just moving some stuff, gotta keep it cold." That freezer wasn't keeping food cold. I knew it in my gut. He thanked me, flicked the cigarette, and vanished behind the truck again. I stood there, thinking, debating. I've seen sketchy, I've seen drug runs, I've even seen illegal organ transport back in Louisiana once. But this felt worse. I don't know what made me do it, maybe curiosity, maybe instinct, but I walked over, slow, careful. The back latch wasn't locked. I pulled it open. The cold hit me first. A blast of frigid air that wrapped around me like death itself. Inside, it was lit by a single flickering bulb. Metallic walls lined with frost. 3 black body bags, heavy-duty, sealed, lined up on the floor like sleeping corpses. One of them wasn't zipped all the way. I didn't want to look, but I did. I saw a foot, human, pale, discolored, frozen, bruises around the ankle, a faint tattoo, something floral. I stumbled backward, my breath fogging in the desert heat. I slammed the doors and nearly tripped running back to my rig. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my phone twice trying to call 911. When the dispatcher answered, I blurted it all out. Box truck, white, no tags, possible bodies. Told them where, gave them the plates. She asked if I was sure. I remember saying, "Lady, I just saw a dead woman's foot in a freezer." Then I locked my doors and waited. Cops found him about 50 miles out near Benson. He didn't resist, just pulled over like it was any other traffic stop. Inside the truck, 3 bodies, all women. He'd met one online. The other 2 were hitchhikers. He confessed, calm as can be. said he was taking them to rest where no one would find them. Like he was doing them a favor. It's been over 20 years, but I still think about it. About how he smiled at me, how close I stood to that damn truck. I shared a smoke with a monster, and I almost walked away, but I didn't. And maybe, just maybe, someone's daughter got found instead of buried in the desert. Evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it just needs a cigarette and a freezer. They say every road has a story, but some roads, they don't just have stories. They keep them. Like they soak into the asphalt, into the trees, into the fog that never seems to lift. There's a stretch of Route 33 through the West Virginia Appalachians that I won't drive after dark anymore. Not because of what I saw that night, but because I don't think she ever really left my truck. I've been a long-haul trucker since I was 21. I've driven through nearly every state in this country. I've seen sunrises over the Rockies, ice storms in the Dakotas, and tornadoes out in Texas. But nothing, and I mean nothing, ever rattled me like that night in October 1997. There's this stretch of Route 33, runs through the heart of the Appalachians. You'd think being surrounded by mountains would be peaceful. It ain't. It's the kind of place where the trees are too quiet, like they're listening. Like they know something you don't. Fog rolls in real thick there, unpredictable. Like the road wants to hide itself from the world. And the air always smells like rain and rot. I was hauling a load of steel beams that night, headed eastbound to Harrisonburg, Virginia. Left Charleston around 10, thinking I'd beat the fog. Should have known better. Around midnight, the mist started to thicken. Not the kind that drifts low like morning fog, but heavy, choking, clinging to everything. It swallowed the road ahead and the world behind. I turned off my high beams, made it worse. My headlights just glowed white like I was underwater. I slowed down to 30. That's when I saw her. At first, I thought it was my eyes playing tricks on me. That thick fog can mess with depth perception. But she was real, pale, thin, soaking wet. Her dress looked like something out of another time, flowing and lacy, like an old photograph come to life. She was walking slowly, like she didn't know where she was going, or maybe didn't care. I pulled over, my hazard lights blinking in the dark, rolled the window down, leaned over. "You all right, ma'am?" She didn't answer, just turned her head to look at me, and I'll never forget that look. Not fear, not sadness, just hollow. Something told me to keep driving. Every instinct said no, but I've got a daughter. I thought, what if someone left her out here? What if she needed help? I unlocked the passenger door. She climbed in without a word. No thank you, no hesitation. Just opened the door, sat down, and closed it behind her. I glanced over. She was soaked to the bone. Her hair dripped onto her dress. Her hands sat still in her lap. I tried to start some conversation. "Where are you headed?" "You from around here?" Nothing, just silence, and the sound of my own heartbeat in my ears. We drove for maybe 10 miles. I kept glancing at her, hoping she'd say something, even a whisper, but she just stared straight ahead, like the road was pulling her forward. And then, just before I reached the curve near Hawk's Nest, I looked over again, and the seat was empty. No sound, no door. 1 second she was there, the next, nothing. I slammed the brakes so hard the whole rig jerked. Tires squealed, cargo rattled. I pulled onto the shoulder and jumped out. Flashlight in hand, I ran up and down the road, calling out into the mist. "Hey, lady, where'd you go?" Nothing answered, just the wind through the trees. No footsteps, no voices, no sign that she'd ever been there. Except the seat, still wet. I didn't say a word the rest of the drive. Just kept my eyes on the road and gripped the wheel till my knuckles turned white. When I reached Harrisonburg around sunrise, I pulled into a little diner off the highway. One of those 24-hour joints where the coffee's hot and the bacon's always burnt. I must have looked like death. The waitress raised an eyebrow and poured me a cup. I told her what happened. That's when the old-timer at the counter turned around. Worn flannel shirt, white beard, eyes like ice chips. He said, "You saw Lacey." He told me the story like it was common knowledge. Lacey was a young woman, a hitchhiker, disappeared sometime in the 1970s. Folks say she got picked up by a stranger, never made it to her destination. Her body was found in a ravine off Route 33, dress torn, barefoot. Ever since then, only truckers see her. She's always walking, always barefoot. And if she gets in your cab, she never makes it to the end of the road. I tried to laugh it off at the time. Ghost stories, right? But even now, all these years later, I don't think I've driven Route 33 without looking at that passenger seat. I felt the cold come back, heard the CB radio crackle with a voice that cuts out before I can answer. Seen the seatbelt pulled down just a little too tight. I don't stop for anyone anymore. But sometimes, I still smell damp earth, and I know she's with me. Some folks say ghosts linger because they've got unfinished business. I think Lacey's business is finished. She just doesn't know how to leave. So if you ever find yourself driving Route 33 on a foggy night, and you see a girl in white walking barefoot, don't stop. Because once she's in your truck, she never really gets out. You ever haul something that made your skin crawl, not because of what you knew was inside, but because of what you didn't? You ever hear something in your trailer, a faint knock, a shuffle, like something breathing in the dark, something that shouldn't be there? Yeah, I did, and I'll never forget what I found. Because some jobs don't just change your life, they change the way you look at humanity. My name's Jared. I was 34 when this happened. I'd been an independent truck operator for just over 6 years. Ran my own rig, made my own runs, answered to no one. I liked the freedom. No dispatchers barking orders, no warehouse managers screaming about load times, just me, the road, and the humming engine. I was based out of Arizona, but took contracts all over the Southwest. If the money was right, I didn't ask questions. That was my mistake. This run started in Las Vegas. Middle of summer, dry heat that feels like it's peeling the skin off your bones. I pulled into this fenced lot on the edge of town. Nothing official, just a dirt pad with a rusted trailer, a porta potty, and a couple guys sitting in folding chairs like they were guarding gold. They handed me an envelope with $2,000 in cash and pointed to a sealed white trailer. It's ready to go. Just get it to Reno by morning. No stops, no opens, and don't ask what's inside. It wasn't the first time I'd heard that, but it was the last time I ignored it. The trailer was sealed, metal clasp, red wax stamp, chain link around the handles. Whoever loaded it wanted to make damn sure no one peeked inside. Didn't sit right with me, but I'd seen stranger things on the road. I hit Highway 95 heading north. It's a long, lonely stretch, just desert, Joshua trees, and silence. I settled in, turned on some late-night talk radio, cracked a monster, and let the hum of the tires carry me through the nothingness. About an hour in, I heard it. A soft thump, just once. Then nothing. I figured maybe the cargo shifted. Loose pallet, maybe. Happens all the time. Then I heard it again, this time louder. Thump, thump, thump. It was rhythmic, like someone pounding weakly on a wall. I turned down the radio, leaned forward in my seat, listening. Nothing but wind. Then a sound I will never forget. It wasn't loud. It wasn't clear. But it was real. A muffled scream. Long, strained, barely audible, like someone crying out with a sock shoved in their mouth. I slammed the brakes and pulled off at the next turnout. My hands were sweating, my pulse was spiking. I stared at the back of that trailer for a solid minute. I was trained not to open sealed loads. You do that and you're liable, contract void, maybe even arrested. But this wasn't cargo. Something or someone was back there. I grabbed my bolt cutters from the toolbox under the cab. The metal seal snapped clean off, and the wax crumbled in my hand. The doors creaked open, and the stench hit me like a punch into the face. Sweat, urine, something sour and rotting. I pulled out my flashlight and swept it across the interior. Wooden crates, dozens of them. Stacked like Tetris, every inch filled, no labels, no markings. Then I heard it again, a soft whimper. One crate near the back shifted slightly. I dropped to my knees, yanked at the lid. Nails screeched as the wood splintered. The top came off, and inside, there was a girl, maybe 15, pale as death. Her wrists were zip-tied, duct tape over her mouth, eyes wide like saucers. She was shaking so violently I thought she was having a seizure. She looked at me like I was the devil. I didn't blame her. I backed away, heart jackhammering in my chest, called 911, told them everything, my location, what I saw, that there were more crates. Operator told me to stay put. Units were en route. I sat down on the pavement, trembling. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was choking on my own breath. Because suddenly I realized something. There wasn't just one crate. There were over a dozen. By the time the cops got there, sheriff's deputies, paramedics, unmarked SUVs, I'd opened 2 more crates. Another girl, this one barely conscious. Then a boy, young, maybe 12, completely unresponsive. They were all in the same condition. Drugged, bound, silent. Paramedics pulled them out one by one. Turns out there were 6 kids total, and not a single soul knew where they came from. The company I picked the load up from? Gone. Vanished. The lot they gave me was registered to a shell corporation that didn't exist anymore. The number they gave me? Disconnected. Email? Dead. It was all fake. This wasn't a one-off job, it was a trafficking ring. And I'd been used. One crate had something different. A hidden latch under the base. I pried it open, and underneath was a crawlspace. Tiny, cramped, reeking. Inside was a filthy mattress, a plastic jug, and iron shackles bolted to the wood. That wasn't transport. That was confinement. That was punishment. And suddenly I understood. They weren't just smuggling these kids, they were breaking them. That night broke something in me. I kept driving for a few more months, but I couldn't sleep. Couldn't sit in my cab without wondering what was behind me. Every noise, every bump in the trailer, I heard it like it was a scream. I gave it up, sold my rig, took a warehouse job, and I've never taken a sealed trailer since. Sometimes I still dream about that trailer. The sound of fingernails scratching wood, the muffled cries. I saved those kids, but I still feel like I was part of something evil. And I wonder, how many more trailers passed me by on that road? How many more are out there, right now? You ever haul something that made your skin crawl? I did, and I'll carry it with me for the rest of my life. Human trafficking is real. If you see something, say something. Have you ever had someone look you in the eye and tell you something so strange, so out there, that your first instinct is to laugh, but then they don't laugh back? They don't blink. They just stare like they've seen something no human was ever meant to see. That was my co-driver Ben back in the fall of 2016. We were halfway through a routine haul, simple job, standard route from Seattle to North Dakota. Nothing unusual, except that stretch of road outside of Billings, Montana, where the woods get thicker, the lights vanish, and the world around you feels like it's holding its breath. That night changed both of us. One of us left trucking for good, and the other, me, never drove that stretch of highway again. It was my turn to sleep. We were team drivers. I'd take the day shift, Ben took nights. We did this kind of haul often. That night was no different. I crawled into the sleeper cab around 10 p.m., threw a blanket over myself, and was out cold within minutes. The sound of tires on highway always helped me sleep. There's a certain rhythm to it, something meditative. You forget the world exists beyond that line of pavement. But at around 3 a.m., I was ripped out of sleep by the sound of Ben screaming my name. "Chris! Chris, wake up! Look out the window!" My eyes flew open, heart pounding. I scrambled to sit up, still tangled in the blanket. Ben was yelling so loud I thought we were crashing, but we weren't. The truck was still flying down the road at a steady 60. I climbed forward, disoriented. Ben looked like a man in shock. His eyes were bulging, face drenched in sweat, jaw trembling. He kept one hand on the wheel and the other jabbing at the window beside me. "It was right there," he shouted. "Chris, I swear to God, it was right there, keeping pace with us." "What the hell are you talking about?" I croaked. He gritted his teeth, chest heaving. Something was running beside the truck, on 2 legs, keeping up at 60 miles an hour. It had arms, long arms, like its elbows bent the wrong way. It didn't have a face, just smooth skin, like a wax figure, but alive. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. It didn't come. I turned to the window, but there was nothing there, just shadows flickering through trees in the endless dark. "Ben," I said slowly, "you need to calm down, man. You probably dozed off." "No," he snapped. "I saw it. It was real. It looked in at me, Chris. No face, but it knew I was here. Now listen, I've seen what sleep deprivation does to truckers. You get tunnel vision, you start seeing things in shadows. So I was ready to chalk it up to stress and a long night. That's when we heard it, a loud, heavy thump right above us. On the roof of the cab. It wasn't a branch, wasn't hail, wasn't a bird. This was heavy, deliberate. I climbed into the front seat, heart hammering. I could hear something shifting above us, something alive. Each step made the roof creak in unnatural ways. Ben gripped the wheel with white knuckles, muttering under his breath, "Don't stop, don't stop, don't stop." Then we heard it, a slow, sharp scraping sound, claws dragging across metal, pacing the length of the roof. Ben slammed the gas. The truck roared. We shot forward. The weight above shifted again, but didn't fall off. It clung to us. I leaned over and looked into the side mirror, and that's when I saw it. Crouched low at the back edge of the trailer, like some massive insect was the thing. It had these long, disjointed limbs folded underneath it, skin stretched tight over bones like dry leather, no face, no eyes, just folds of featureless skin where a face should have been. And yet I swear it was looking right at me. I turned away fast. My stomach twisted, my skin went ice cold. That thing wasn't human. It wasn't animal either. It was something else. The thing finally vanished about 10 minutes later. No sound, no warning, just gone. We didn't stop. We drove another 90 minutes, dead silent, before pulling into a truck stop outside Miles City. The place was empty, cold, and soaked in that pre-dawn stillness that feels almost too quiet. Ben didn't say a word. He just sat there, staring at the dashboard like it would explain something. I climbed out and circled the trailer. That's when I saw it. One corner of the trailer roof, dented inward. Deep, unnatural, with scratches all around it like claws had dug in. And in the middle, a greasy black smear like something melted onto the surface. Ben quit that day, didn't even collect his last pay. He grabbed his duffel, muttered something about demons and hell, and took the next Greyhound out. He never answered my calls after that. Far as I know, he never drove another truck again. As for me, I stayed in the business. But I was different after that night. I started sleeping with a knife under my pillow, started taking different routes, and I never drive that stretch of Montana after midnight. Because that thing, it wasn't chasing us, it was toying with us. People think the open road is peaceful, that it's freedom. But I've seen the other side of it, the side that doesn't make sense. So if you ever find yourself out there on a lonely highway, just you, the trees, and the stars, and you think you see something keeping pace with you in the dark, don't look. Don't acknowledge it. Just keep your eyes forward, hands on the wheel, and drive. Because if it locks onto you, it won't let go. And you might not be as lucky as we were. If you like these horror stories, please like and share this video, and subscribe to the channel for more true scary stories. You ever feel like something just wanted you to never leave? Like the walls were watching, like the air was waiting to close in on you? I've been on the road nearly 40 years, seen blizzards in Wyoming, empty desert highways in New Mexico, and roads so foggy in Maine you can't see your own headlights. But nothing, and I mean nothing, got under my skin like what I found in a truck stop basement off an old Ohio back road. I don't know what that place really was, and I don't want to know. All I know is I came this close to disappearing forever. It was the fall of 2008, October 27th. The kind of evening where the cold sneaks into your bones no matter how high the heat's blasting inside your cab. I was headed west on Route 30, just past Worcester. I'd been running all day and had about 3 hours of driving left in me, but my fuel gauge was hugging E, and my eyes were starting to blur. I hadn't seen another rig in over an hour, just trees and cornfields, long stretches of blacktop winding through forgotten farmland. Then, like a mirage, I spotted a sign glowing in the distance through the misty air. A tall, flickering neon sign, barely holding on. Rest easy, truck stop, open 24 hours. I pulled in. At the time, it felt like salvation. I didn't realize I was pulling into something else entirely. The lot was cracked, overgrown at the edges with weeds that looked like they hadn't been trimmed in a decade. An old diesel pump leaned sideways like it had been smacked by a rig long ago and never fixed. I parked my truck near the diner section and stepped out. The cold hit me first, sharp and still, with that strange smell you get near abandoned buildings. Mildew, rust, something off. I opened the door and was hit with a blast of warm air that somehow didn't comfort me. It made me nervous. The inside was like stepping back into the 1970s. Yellowed fluorescent lights buzzed and flickered. The walls were paneled with fake wood, greasy and warped in spots. There was a rack of dusty road maps by the door, a gumball machine that looked like it hadn't been refilled in years. No music, no TVs, no hum of conversation, just the sound of the cooler motor humming and the lights buzzing like flies trapped in plastic. Then I saw him behind the counter, a man, maybe late 40s, though his skin looked worn like he'd lived twice that. Thin, tall, pale as a ghost. His sweater was moth-eaten, hanging off his shoulders like it barely fit him anymore. But what got me wasn't his look, it was his smile. Wide, unblinking, like he'd just been waiting for me to walk in. "You look beat," he said, voice rasping like sandpaper. "We got rooms, real cheap, downstairs, warm, quiet." I asked if there was a motel nearby. He chuckled like I'd made a joke. "Nothing around for miles, friend. This is the best place you'll find. Safe, too." The way he said safe, it sounded like a warning pretending to be an invitation. I didn't want to stay. I should have left, but I was tired and my judgment, it was dull. He handed me a key with a bent metal tag, room 3. He nodded toward a heavy wooden door behind the counter. "Just down those stairs." I blinked. "Down?" "Yep, basement rooms, warm in the winter, cool in the summer." He smiled again, too long. I took the key and opened the door. Cold air poured out immediately, thick with dampness and something else, something that smelled like rot beneath old concrete. The stairs creaked as I stepped down. My boots echoed like I was walking into a tomb. Behind me, the door swung shut with a heavy thud. The hallway at the bottom was damp and narrow, like a maintenance corridor in some abandoned asylum. The air felt thick, moldy, like it hadn't been circulated in years. The walls were plain concrete. The floor had puddles. I walked slowly, boots splashing slightly with every step. Each room had a number stenciled above it. Room 1, room 2, room 3, but no windows, no ventilation. Just flat doors, each one with a small peephole and something that stopped me cold. All the locks were on the outside. I stopped at room 3, key shaking in my hand. Something inside me whispered, "Don't open it." Then I noticed room 5's door, just slightly ajar. I couldn't help it. I peeked in. The room was tiny, windowless. A single mattress lay on the floor, stained, torn, covered in what looked like burn marks, and then I saw them. Chains, bolted into the floor. I backed up, heart slamming in my chest. Suddenly I didn't feel tired. I felt watched, hunted, trapped. I turned and ran, hard as I could, up those stairs. Every creak of wood behind me sounded like footsteps following close. I burst through the basement door like I'd been underwater. The clerk was still at the desk, same frozen smile. But now, his eyes were different. He looked surprised, or maybe disappointed. "Forgot something?" he asked. I didn't answer. I just walked past him, fast and steady. Didn't run, didn't give him the satisfaction. But as I grabbed the handle to the main door, I swear to God, I heard him whisper, "You weren't supposed to leave." I got in my cab, locked the doors, and didn't sleep a damn wink all night. I parked around back, killed the engine, sat in the dark. My heart didn't slow down for hours. Every creak of metal in the wind, every shifting shadow in the side mirror, it all felt alive. I kept thinking about those locks, on the outside, and the chains, the way the room smelled like blood and mold and burnt fabric. I didn't sleep, just stared at the entrance, waiting for that clerk to come knocking on my door. But he never did. Morning came like a mercy. The place looked just as broken down in daylight. The neon sign had burned out completely. I started her up and got the hell out of there. When I hit the next town, I stopped at a diner and jumped online. Nothing. No record of a Rest Easy truck stop in that area. No address, no photos, no reviews. Like it didn't exist. Like it was just waiting for someone to stumble in. A week later, I passed through the same stretch of road again. I couldn't resist. I had to see it with my own eyes. I slowed down, looked to the right, but it was gone. The entire truck stop vanished. In its place, Just an empty concrete slab, cracked with weeds and wild grass. No sign, no pumps, not even the shell of a building, like it had never been there at all. I parked for a moment, just stared. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was just there. I touched the doorknobs, walked down those stairs, saw that mattress, smelled that smell. And now it was like it had been wiped clean, like it only exists when it wants to, like it only shows up for people who are alone, tired, vulnerable. People who won't be missed. I don't know what that place really was, a trap, a ritual, a doorway to something dark. Hell, maybe it was just a relic from another time, still feeding on the living. But I'll tell you this, if I'd closed that door behind me, if I'd locked myself inside room 3, you wouldn't be hearing this story. You'd be reading about an old man who vanished off Route 30, another face on a bulletin board, another trucker who just never made it home. So if you're ever out that way, and you're tired, and you see an old truck stop glowing in the distance, one that doesn't show up on the map, do yourself a favor, keep driving, because some doors you don't want to open, and some rooms they were never meant to be slept in.